Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to American Vindicta. I'm your host, Doug Thornton. We have today with us Bob Griswold of Ready Made Resources. Bob is one of the longest standing sponsors of our show. And Bob, we're going to talk about some EMP stuff and some get home out of the apocalypse, back to your house kind of stuff today. But you have a special going on your website right now for night vision. Would you like to tell us about it?
Well, it's not an advertised special. It's going to be for you and people listening to you. We ended the sale actually on the 4th of July, but I'm going to extend it for people listening and mention your program with night vision. You know, it's all, the tubes are everything they put in it. A PBS 14 is like saying about a Mustang. Well, you can buy a 4-cylinder little popper Mustang, or you can buy a Shelby. And it makes a huge difference in the performance of that car, depends on what engine you put in it. Well, night vision is the same way. And a mill grade pair of night vision have what's called a 1800 FOM. FOM means figure of merit. That's the one of the terms they use to rate the night vision, how good it is. Anything above 1800 is higher than a mill grade. Well, right, we have 2200 FOM, and we actually got a bunch of 2400 FOM at the same price. So we're allowing people to upgrade from a 2200 FOM to a 2400 FOM. That's normally a $300 upgrade. If they just mention it in the comment section, we will upgrade you for free. Mention Doug, American Vindicta, something to let me know that you saw it on your program. And if you, when you order the 2200 FOM unit, order that one, I will automatically increase it to a 2400 FOM unit. You get a specification sheet with it that shows, the manufacturer and all the tube specifications. So good chance to save $300 right now.
Yeah, and that's awesome, man. And let's talk about why night vision is probably way more needed now than what people think.
Well, I mean, we mentioned right before the program, Sri Lanka's in the dark.
Completely in the dark.
In the dark, and it's only a matter of time before we go to 5th generation warfare with Russia and the Axis powers, which we're doing it to some extent right now. And let's explain what 5th generation warfare is. It's gone beyond nuclear weapons. It's like we turn each other's power off. We turn each other's rail system off, their water system. We make bridges open when they're not supposed to open, and we overtax power lines so they sag and catch the woods on fire or break down completely.
Yeah.
Communication, you can't communicate. It's only a matter of time before this goes into a hot war. And when things go dark, I'm telling you, you're going to have the zombies out running around. And if you want to be able to protect yourself from them, you're going to have night vision, period. There is no other way around it. It's not cheap. It's not the Amazon stuff. If you're going to go out and try to buy a couple $100 pair on Amazon, you are going to get an absolute piece of garbage that you're going to tie a rope to and throw it in the water to use as an anchor, because it's that much of a garbage. Military grade night vision, it allows you to have incredible capabilities. So, right now you can upgrade from a 24 to a 22 to a 2400 FOM. And let me explain to you what those numbers mean. The higher that number, it works better in extremely low light conditions. Night vision does need some light to work, and extremely little. But the higher that FOM number, generally, as you get into woods that maybe the full summer canopy, it's cloudy out, no ambient light, those higher numbers are going to give you better visibility. And when you get into those extreme low light situations, because if you go into a bank vault and close the door, night vision doesn't work. It has to have some light with it. Now, with that said, it does have a little switch you can turn on, an infrared illuminator, which I don't recommend using if you're outside because you'll light yourself up. But if you're in a situation like that, it has a little infrared illuminator you can turn on, and that would light it up quite well. But like I said, if you're outside with that turned on, anybody else with night vision, you're going to be walking around like with a glowing head, and probably not the best thing to do. But anyhow, so the $3,395 to $3,695, that's a $300 upgrade. You get it for no extra cost. We do have financing on the night vision. I just look at this thing, and Doug, sometimes I just look and I'm stunned by Americans, because nothing is jumping out at them at the news today. And we had 2 Supreme Court victories. We think we've won the battle. I mean, it's absolutely insane. These people, this is a global hydra that's coming at us from so many different angles, and they're so well entrenched into the system that I don't know if you can get rid of the hydra without killing the system. I don't think you can. In every level of bureaucracy, that hydra is there tearing down America. I mean, case in point. I got to be careful what I say, because I don't want to say anything that would be criminal, but you got Joe Biden selling our oil our strategic reserve oil that's made for the military in case we have a national emergency, they can still operate. He's selling it overseas, including to the Chinese. I mean, this is insane. This country has been undone. And it's only a matter of time before, I mean, we were a powerful country. I understand that. Our nation is built on the blood and sweat and tears of many people that have worked hard to ensure freedom and liberty and financial soundness and moral integrity. But over the last 50 years, most of that has been completely destroyed. And so I think our nation's hanging on a teetering string right now. And it's only going to take a major event really to send it over the edge. You just look what's happening in Akron, Ohio right now, where that man was shot. Now, from what I understand, it was a justified shooting because he first of all, he was arrested the day before, went into a high-speed chase. So how does he get back out again to do what he did? But he was actually shooting at a police officer, and they responded by shooting him back, and now they want to burn the city down. It's staggering. Over and over and over again, we're just seeing these levels of violence. Case in point, I mean, look how many active shooters we've had recently. People are becoming unhinged, and each one of them looks like a freakazoid, out of some type of surrealistic dystopian movie. I look at it, and it's just, they're just going out and killing anybody and anything they can kill. And so, as our nation swirls down this road to violence more and more, it's going to be incumbent. I mean, you can do nothing. I mean, you can absolutely do nothing. You can sit on the deck of the Titanic while the whole ship goes down if you want to. That's your choice. I mean, nobody's going to force you to get onto a lifeboat. But if you want to survive, you better start building your lifeboat, and it's well down the road at doing it. We are facing a financial collapse. Our infrastructure is collapsing. Our money, like I said, is collapsing. Just think what's happened to the moral integrity of our nation. We are a nation right now that celebrates perversion, deviancy, just despicable things. We celebrate that as virtue. And if I say anything, you're deemed a hater, a hypocrite. In some states, you can be threatened by law. But, the empirical facts are, if I practice biblical morality, and as far as sexuality is concerned, our nation would be far, far better off. STDs would go away. You wouldn't have them. I mean, so the empirical evidence is there following biblical morality concerning human sexuality, just that one area, it would resolve so much in our country. 20% of Americans, 25% of Americans carry a sexually transmitted disease right now. And we see it just absolutely ripping and tearing our society apart. Monkeypox now is going through the homosexual community. I mean, but we celebrate that which is killing us. I mean, we absolutely have parties and parades and all kinds of bizarre stuff we do. And we indoctrinate our children. Like, it's really noble. If we take our children to watch men gyrating and twerking in the middle of the street with just some little G-string thing on or something. I was watching, there was, I think, an article, I forgot who did it, Epoch Times, how, what's wrong with Hollywood's children? I mean, it just seems like anybody who has a boy in Hollywood dresses him up as a girl. I mean, I was watching one actor, I want to mention who it is, but it showed him kissing his son, who's dressed up as a girl, kissing him on the lips. And I mean, a passionate kiss on the lips. I mean, and we celebrate that. So if you look at this, you just know our nation's falling apart at the seams right now. And like I said, can it be undone? I'm not sure. Without killing the entire system, if you gut that much of it out, because it's the bureaucracy, it's entrenched in every aspect, the news media, education, medicine, food, government, you name it, law enforcement, it's entrenched in there now. And that would all have to go away. Barring some type of miracle from God, if you did that, you would actually destroy the nation, because the nation is now grown to be hedonistic and depraved. But at the end, that destroys us anyhow. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. I look at this every day. I see this stuff. I mean, New Zealand's heading towards financial collapse. We caused the financial collapse of Russia, and yet it looks like it's going to end up causing our financial collapse. We see the Axis allied powers developing right now. I mean, you know, we had just another failed hypersonic missile test. I just wonder, we spent $800 billion a year on military, more than like the top 10 countries in the world spend. And Russia has a hypersonic missile that works, but we don't. What are we doing with all that money? Anybody in the DoD knows what we do with the money. Just vast amounts of it are wasted kickbacks, you know, going back to the defense contractors who then pay off Congress, pay off generals. And then those generals, when they retire, go back into the defense industry and make all that money. But our military is falling apart. We just bought, I forgot what kind of ship it was, but I just watched, it was there's a whole class of ships less than 10 years old. We just retired them all because they are technologically out of date. So we mothballed them. Billions of dollars spent. Yet now it's mothballed. So if people can't see this right now, and we see it in the levels of violence in our society, which are at absolutely staggering levels. You know, we murder children, we rape children and celebrate it. We celebrate extreme violence all over media. And then we wonder why we have violence working out in our society. It's simple. And I just look and just wonder how much more of it our nation can take before something really does break badly. The infrastructure is falling apart. The supply chain is falling apart. It's all coming unglued. I always say this to people: if the dollar had collapsed as much as morality in this country had collapsed, the dollar would have been monopoly money a long time ago. And without the moral integrity and strength and virtue that we have in a Christian society, you know, our society cannot function. And we just see it. I mean, going back to this Georgia Guidestone thing, you know, I don't know who people are spreading this rumor it was tannerite. I don't believe that it had the wrong signature to the explosion as far as the color of the explosion. But how does a government agency have an explosion like that and destroy the evidence in 24 hours, tear it all down? I mean, and then they're ready to tear it down. And that's private property. So somebody had to give them permission to tear it down. But nobody asked those questions. Nobody asked the hard questions. And we just see our society day in and day out being broken. And, you know, it's coming to that great collapse when they're going to force the reset on us, the great reset. And I'm just afraid most Americans won't be, first of all, they're not going to be ready here. That we've built. I mean, when I looked at those little things on Hollywood children that they've taken and femitized boys, they've just made them little girls. You know, the battle is here. And most Americans can't even see what's going on around them. And they're definitely not emotionally or spiritually prepared for some type of hardship that's coming our way. When you take away a nation's money, when you take away and break down all the conveniences we've had, we were talking about the other day. I mean, when the air conditioning goes out, you're going to have a mass death event in the United States. Older people won't be able to live without that air conditioner. Black mold will start growing in your houses because American houses are strictly made for air conditioned systems. And it won't take long before black mold would start growing all over the drywall and the wood and everywhere else. So we're headed towards this right now. And I cannot ring the bell. This is, I don't know, the mission God gave me, you can, for whatever reason, is to warn the American people that this system is in collapse and you better get ready for it. And I'm telling you, I have law enforcement friends all over the country. I have people in high places that buy from my company, and all of them say the thing. I mean, it's so obvious what's happening. They can see it. They can see it. And this is why, you know, we're going to do the class in September with you to train people, because this is the battlefield. If this battlefield is not working correctly, I don't care how much gear you have, you're going to lose that battle. It's here. The 6 inches between your ears, that's where the battlefield will reign. And even the Bible talks about, you know, girding up the loins of your mind, preparing your mind for hardship, all those things. And that's where we're at. So, you know, I'm looking at my notes right now. Another thing I've just noticed how belligerent the red-blue battle is becoming. I mean, how many states is Governor Newsom forbidding people to travel to now? 22. I mean, that's about half the country. People from California can't travel to. And, you know, DeSantis and Newsom are in this verbal sparring. I mean, you see more and more politicians that used to play civil in the public arena because they knew their tone sets the tone for the country. They're at the level of almost threatening each other. And Newsom's threatening DeSantis. DeSantis has to counter to it. And that's just not an isolated event. We see it in politicians now. The Supreme Court. I mean, they're just about ready to go to blows. And so every way the nation can fall apart, it's falling apart. And just don't follow the news cycle, ladies and gentlemen. Just don't follow it. Follow your gut instinct. As I tell people, becoming an intelligence officer is not a hard thing. 80% of intelligence is open sourced information. You can get it off the internet. Just get a pad of paper. Let me take this off here because I got something I don't want people to see. Just take a pad of paper like this and just start taking notes, writing it down, taking notes of what you see, and then start compiling that stuff together, because that kind of information paints a picture. It gives you clear sight, because it's so easy to think, well, gosh, I totally forgot about the Georgia Guidestones. I'd forgotten the fact that Plum Island had moved out to Manhattan, Kansas. And you know, when you write all that down and have that intelligence stuff, especially if you're an organizer, and sort it so you can recall it back again, because those stories a lot of times up on the internet, then they're taken down. You know, the news cycle takes them down, and you no longer have that source of information anymore. Print it out, write it down, date it, document it. And then when you do that, which I like doing for some reason, I see the picture it's painting, Doug, and it's not a very pretty picture. I mean, when you have Seattle, Washington not prosecuting rape cases, how bad has that become?
Well, we had multiple states across the country on July 4th where law enforcement was specifically targeted by crowds of young men and women for violent actions. You know, not just happenstance, but targeted. We're getting to a point in time where we're going to have conflict in this country, and conflict, once it becomes internal, always escalates the next series of events. I mean, you can just take a look at events that have happened across other countries when they broke down on the internal level, and then the cascading effect that happens after that. Fifth generation war is infrastructural based warfare. All right, now we're going to target satellites. We're going to pollute the water systems. We're going to make it to where your land is not livable. We're not doing, counterinsurgency ops. We're not trying to win hearts and minds. We're not just trying to make your country go broke. We're trying to make the citizens go broke, right? We're trying to make it to where you can't even put gasoline in the generators to run the hospital. You're going to have to ask us to stop. That is the potentiality. And here's the problem. If you're not ready for that, you're going to be begging for the enemy to take you in. And at that point in time, your resistance means nothing. You know, and
well, it not only means something, because they'll take you in, not because they're humanitarian. They're going to take you in because you will serve that wheel, that cog, some purpose. And it's not going to be to your benefit. You're going, I mean, the Nazis used Jews. They hated the Jews. I mean, you know, SS, they hated Jewish people. But did they kill them all? No. The young ones, the healthy ones, man, they used them. But it wasn't for their good. So anybody who offers you some kind of benevolent deal like that, I mean, they look at you as strictly a source of currency. You will make them something, and you have no other purpose than that. And as soon as you cease to be a form of currency to them, you go to the gas chamber, you go to the bullet firing squad, whatever. You don't get any more food. That's where it's headed. People, I will challenge you this. Prove me wrong. Show me how my intelligence and Doug's intelligence and our understanding of the intelligence we're seeing day in and day out is wrong. Just document it. Document a civilization. I don't go back to the Assyrians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Russians. Go back anywhere and show me a civilization that has done what we're done, that's this far down the road, that recovers. There are none. None. You break the family apart, destroys the nation. That in one event in itself breaks the nation down. It's unrecoverable from that. Birth rate. Once birth rate goes below 2.1, the nation ceases to exist because you're not replenishing the population. Well, ours is down on 1.8, 1.9 right now. We're not. That's why they have to bring all the people in. And so we are being displaced by people. We're being displaced because we bought this globalist lie. You don't want to have children. Children pollute the planet, and people buy it. And oh my gosh, children are a hassle anyhow, and you don't want to have them. And you just look, they do everything they can to kill the children to begin with, abort them, murder them, sexually abuse them, take their adrenochrome, don't give them baby formula. I mean, it's the demons that inhabited Pharaoh when he killed the children, the demons that inhabited, Nero when he killed the children. all of them, there's those same demons are running around doing the same thing today, kill the children. So we're not even replenishing our population, and our nation's in free fall. Now, I will say this. This is the good point. If you're a Christian person, God speaks to you. He will speak to you through his word. I mean, that is the best intelligence report in the world. You know what the CIA would give if I could say, here's an intelligence briefing that's 100% accurate for the next 5 years. This is what's going to happen in the next 5 years. What would they pay me for that? $10 billion. It'd be worth whatever. And if it's 100% accurate, we have that intelligence report. And it's the word of God telling us what we see, what's going to happen. And we can choose to ignore it, or we can take the intelligence report, the Bible, and read it and live by it and put it into practice and then walk by it. But pastors today, there's two ways pastors can preach. They can preach topographically, and that's what 99% of pastors in the United States do. Oh, let's talk about God's love today. Next week, we'll talk about grace. Then we'll talk about, woke, loving everybody. That's what they do. And they pull out their Bible verses and they do it. A preacher like MacArthur, is a really good preacher, preaches exegetically. He starts in Matthew, goes all the way through Matthew, verse by verse by verse. Very few preachers preach that anymore because it makes them hit subjects they don't like to talk about. And when they talk about things they don't like to talk about, people quit and they go somewhere else and give their money somewhere else. So pastors just abdicate. We're a nation in catastrophe right now because of this. Pastors do not uphold moral high ground, not concerning marriage, not concerning children, not concerning anything. They just, they're cowards.
Well, I have a theory on that. I think one of the downfalls of America, I think it's proven as a downfall for every major society worldwide, when the warrior ethos becomes corrupted and the warrior itself becomes compromised and complacent and becomes politician, becomes lackadaisical, becomes easily deceived, becomes easily entertained. Yes. When they're in peacetime, that is when the country implodes. Look at Rome. Rome would have conquered the entire world and would have been unstoppable if Rome would have just attempted to continue to conquer the entire world instead of spreading its politics everywhere it went. But Rome, because of politicians and leaders, got mixed up with the Rome charges, and then they forgot the original view of Caesar was to go out and conquer the world. Instead, they tried to conquer and make everything into Rome instead of just conquering. Well, America's kind of done the same thing, but we've been conquered now. We've been conquered by these fake philosophers, by fake pastors. Pacifists have ruined this nation. We're a warlike people. We have been. Since the beginning, we've been a warlike people. Hey, name me what war we didn't just come out of. We have always been at war. And because of that, we've always been, at least the wheels keep turning. We may not always like the wars, and especially years later when we understand the wars better, but it keeps the population at least in a mindset. And it makes the young men at least stay in a mindset of that warrior ethos. We've destroyed that in this country. And because of that, because we've destroyed that warrior ethos, it's one of the reasons why guys like me and you are out here and we're trying to recreate that spark for men and women as well to have that warrior ethos once again. God is a man of war. If you are a pastor, a preacher, a priest, you should be a high priest and a man of war, not just in the realms of spiritual, but if need be, you need to get your rod of iron and protect your flock sometimes. But pacifism has nailed Christ back to the cross. And that's not what Jesus was. Jesus doesn't come back with hugs and kisses. Jesus,
no, he came to save lives to begin with. He comes back and he destroys them. I don't know if you can read that. Let's see. Well, okay. You can get it on Amazon. It's a book series called Political Sermons of the Founding Era, 1730 to 1805. These are pastors that are preaching sermons about, justice. Mm-hmm. And, we can't allow tyranny. There's two books in the series and they're excellent to read.
No, here's a problem right now by the moment you said pastors and preaching justice. Over the past couple of years, I have seen two different forms of pastors preaching justice. One pastor goes a ethnicity route and preaches justice and depravity and everything that we would consider to be reprobate from the Bible. And then the other one sits behind the pulpit and says, we all need to come together and get along. Yeah. Or the Church of Christ is going to completely fall apart.
We need to invite Ted Bundy over. Yeah. Babysit our children. Good guy. John Wayne Gacy. We'll have him a Sunday school teacher. He's changed his way. I mean, that's what they're doing. And our nation is suffering for it. You mentioned Rome. Rome started falling apart as soon as their family started falling apart. Mm-hmm. As soon as the nucleus of the family is falling apart in Rome, Rome did. And you can go back to any civilization, and that's always a key indicator of the civilization falling apart, is what's happening to the family. I mean, when we have children, I mean, they're married, people have children, and they get divorced. They have another set of parents, and they get divorced again. They have another set of parents, and they get divorced again, have another set of parents. Some children are on their third or fourth set of parents. And these children end up coming out just screwed up in their brain at the end. And, it's no wonder. And then they go to public school and they're told, you can be, if you mutilate yourself, you can be a girl. If you do this, I have a book I bought that's used in public schools. I have it right down there. Not my idea, about a transitioning child. And that's used in public schools. I mean, I'm sitting right on the ground and show it to you. But this is what's being taught. And so, I always like to talk about the solutions to a problem. So, if there's so many different things. We could start with the primary thing you need in your family is food. The solution, it's not even worth mentioning. You might not have the money to go out and buy expensive freeze-dried food, but tell me you can't get an extra can of black beans or an extra bag of rice every time you're at the grocery store.
Well, if you can't, then you might as well just go ahead and accept the fact that all animal food, dog food and cat food, is made for human consumption.
Yeah. Anybody can buy an extra bag of rice. It's not that expensive right now. Now the prices are going up and up and up. Macaroni, pasta. You can buy an extra bag of spaghetti. High calorie food will keep you alive. Potatoes now, unless you're getting, they will go bad eventually. But we overwinter our potatoes that we collect on because I just use them next year for seed potato in my garden, and we've kept those potatoes growing for years, decades now. Well, I just take 10-15% of them and put them in a bucket and put them in a warm, like in my garage where it doesn't freeze. And they just overwinter there, and then I put them back in the ground, and I get more potatoes. We just harvested a bunch, nice Yukon Gold potatoes, red potatoes. But the food, you need to do that because they're telling us, and every bit of intelligence you can get, they are telling you they're going to starve you out.
Let me tell you a really good advertisement my wife and I saw. Obviously, you live on a farm, I live on a farm. We looked at advertisement for kuni pigs. They're great grazing pigs. They get fat and not too big, but they get fat real fast. They have a huge litter of piglets every year, and they don't tear up the grounds. But this lady who was selling it says, are you paying attention to the economic collapse? Are you worried about not having food in the future? Have your own pork available now. These pigs are like $100. And I'm like, dang. That's advertisement that Walmart needs to start looking at, because I was in Walmart yesterday. All right. And I had to get a few things here and there. And I hate going to Walmart. I hate going to stores, period. And I'm walking around and I'm like, oh my God, a package of pork chops is almost $20 right now. How are you going to be able to feed your family? I have a huge family. That's going to be hard. So that's why we grow food, not just produce, but on the hoof and by the wing, right? Not everybody can do that. I understand that. But if you live in a situation where you need to be doing it. If you can't have a garden, make it in a 5-gallon bucket. That's not hard.
In the summer, you can grow potatoes in a burlap sack, in a bucket. You can take a burlap sack, fill it full of dirt, and then cut slices into it. and put a wedge of potato with an eye on it, put it in there, and they'll grow in that bag. Then turn the bag over at the end of the year, pull out the potatoes, compost the rest of the potato back in the bag, put the dirt back in it, and you can grow again the following year. You can do the same thing with buckets, but they do have to have light. Potatoes do require full sunlight, but you can start growing your garden. Carrots. Another high value crop. They grow in the ground, and they're high in calories, high in vitamins, so they're not hard to grow. You need to have loamy soil. It's better. But and then you need to be harvesting the seeds off the carrots, which takes 2 years to begin with. You don't harvest the seeds the first year, grow carrots the second year. But grow your garden, grow your food. We see this whole move today to get rid of all hybrid seeds. That you can't then take away the farmland. They don't want you growing your own food. I mean, I've actually read one article, two articles. First of all, it says growing a garden is white privilege. Well, I didn't know Black people couldn't grow gardens. Can you imagine what they're saying about their Black people? That must say Black people can't grow a garden. Are they saying they're stupid or something?
Or Hispanic people or Asian people.
I mean, yeah. Just wondering. That's a real pejorative comment you just made about people of color, that they're not smart enough to figure out how to garden. Do you remember
most of the time it's coming from idiot white people.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Who during the slavery era of this country grew all the food? It was Black people out on the farm doing it. So I mean, it's just a pejorative statement they make about people, but so you can grow these gardens fairly easily, and even in your backyard. Even if I had a deed restricted community, I could still put some blueberry bushes in, put some carrots in the ground somewhere, and grow food, because I'm telling you, that's what's coming under attack. And then the ability to filter water, having clean, precious drinking water. We actually are watching right now Lake Powell at historic lows. The Great Salt Lake is drying up. Throughout the country, we're just experiencing these massive droughts, and on top of that, we're having blights that are killing grain crops. And we just 70 million chickens dead. We just saw those 10,000 cows in Kansas that somehow just all died overnight. Well, 10,000 cows are going to die. Didn't happen anywhere else. The heat, which was worse in some other places, I'm sure Texas, but it didn't happen in Texas. It just happened right next to that bioweapons facility that they just opened in Kansas. So,
yeah, I mean, it's 106 right now, and cows are out swimming in ponds. At least that's where I'm at, and I just drove through cattle country. So, I mean, that's right where we live at, is the middle of cattle country, and there's cows everywhere, and all cattle ranchers have ponds for the cows. So the cows have the ability to cool off. They're hardy animals, man. I was raised on this cattle ranch type of stuff. Those are hardy animals, especially if you got Brahmas and Brangus and Angus and Charolais. That's what we had. Those those creatures are going to survive.
I have shade, and the cows are smart enough to get into the shade. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm on the same side with you. Obviously something happened, and obviously we're not going to be told, just like the Georgia Guidestones, right? If there's any type of criminal activity, especially involving explosives, not only is GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, is going to be involved, but the Federal Bureau of Investigations would be involved as well. ATF is going to get involved. They're going to want to do a blast site analysis. They're going to want to find a point of origin site, what we call a POO site, a point of origin site. They're going to want to see if somebody remotely detonated it. If so, if they can find a placement for that person, if it was det cord or there's a burn streaks going through the ground. They're going to want to look for everything, you would think.
And that takes more than 24 hours.
Well, I mean, I guarantee you right now, you can't walk down certain parts of the Highland Park where the massacre just happened at, because it's still an active crime scene. I guarantee it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the crime scene happens. They want to get chemical analysis of the explosive used, because explosives have tags in them, and they want to find out the tags would say who they came from and get all that analysis. But 24 hours, we just tear it down and go on.
There's so much more that goes into that investigation. We want to know where the explosives came from and what was the explosives, because the composites, the plastics, HME, It's not tannerite, but if somebody made it, Projo, someone made it at home, was this what I think personally, if it was criminal activity and not done by themselves, which I'm actually kind of tilting a little bit on, they did it themselves, only because immediately they got torn down. That's the only reason why I say that.
That's a huge piece of evidence.
A huge piece of evidence.
They tear it down right away. They want to get rid of the evidence.
That's right.
They want to get rid of the evidence as quick as they can. Blow it up, get rid of the evidence.
Yeah,
criminal investigations just don't go that way.
No, no, they don't. And that's what I'm saying. If it was actual criminal activity, then maybe it was explosives from a mine. I don't want to get too deep into that, but those are sometimes highly available depending on where you go. Right. So we know that the Mexican cartel uses mine explosives all the time for IEDs. Right. So we know that can be done. And we know it can be done here. But who is it that they're going to say did it? Right. Are they going to say that a right winger did it or that a leftist did it? At this point in time, we don't really know. I don't know if it matters. All I can tell you is that they're going to take that as an attack upon themselves, and they're going to build the guidestones back better.
Well, we know they're going to actually build it for real life, and that was keep humanity at a $500 million population level in perpetuity. We know that that's what they have planned. So this is the thing, Doug, is we say it all the time, and sometimes I get tired of saying it. The evidence is there. It's undeniable, indisputable. 100 food factories burning down, 70 million chickens dying, cows dying, all that happening. And just to write it off as happenstance it strains credulity. So, I mean, what I get tired of, and I talk to Steve, I think we all reach a point of just saying, we try to warn people about this. If you follow the news cycle is designed for one purpose, and that's to emotionally manipulate you.
Yes.
That's what it does. It just emotionally manipulates you. And so it gets you to the point you're thoroughly confused. So you can't make head nor tails. You don't have clear memory, so that you can't recall incidences of tying events together because the news cycle is done. When they used to have MTV on TV and they would have all these music videos, and every 5 seconds that image would change. Somebody doing this, somebody doing that. It's done because your brain has hard times making those long-term judgments when you're seeing a flash of an image, another flash. By the time your brain has even tried to decipher the first image, it's 10, 15 images later. And that's what they do with the news cycle to your brain. It's all designed so that you don't think, you don't reason, you can't understand. It's what we see going on in public school, that children aren't taught history. I mean, our founding history is actually now, it's a bad thing. I just saw that professor come out and say that the Constitution is actually doing a disservice to the people of the United States. It's an old, antiquated document. Like, truth changes. Like, which part of the Constitution is old and antiquated? The freedom of religion?
That's the mantra of the communists, of the Marxists.
I know, but most Americans can't think that way. They go, well, it is an old document. Yeah, maybe we need to update it. So what do you want to update? Do you want police to be able to go into your house without a warrant? Do you want to have a speedy trial? Do you want to have the freedom of religion? That's what our Constitution enshrines. Freedom of firearm. Yeah. So if it's an old document, you want to get rid of that, what are you going to replace it with? So that means you could take away freedom of speech. Does that mean you could take away the right to bear firearms? Does that mean you get to take away the fact that the police need to have probable cause and a warrant to come into your house? What do you want to get rid of exactly? And yet they croak this out over and over and over again. Old document, no good, worn out, old white men, and half of America just buys it. Because it's just, they've lost the ability to think clearly and to reason through things. I mean, just the slavery issue. White people are horrible for slavery. Look what we did. Well, we inherited a system of slavery in this country when we gained our independence. It's been a practice since the dawn of creation. Every people group on the planet practiced slavery, and we inherited it. And in our Constitution, we actually started to make the change in our Constitution. We actually bestowed personhood on Black people. Now, it wasn't perfect. It was 2/3 of a person, which today, and looking back, we think that's horrible. But back then, it was extremely progressive. And we finally, from 1776 to less than 100 years later, we fought a war and got rid of slavery, an institution that had been with humanity for 6,000 years, and it's still, there's still slavery practiced all over the world. The American government took about 90 years, and they overturned an institution that had been with humanity for 6,000 years. That, to me, is a pretty remarkable society. So instead of tearing that society down, I would look at it and say, boy, it's remarkable. Now, yeah, people suffered, absolutely, because it was a well-entrenched mindset. But people who understood the laws of God and the way God created people started moving against that institution. And what had been around for 6,000 years, we got rid of in 90 years. We got rid of slavery. And yet, if you talk to most people today, they can't even think those thoughts because they've been so brainwashed, oh, horrible white people, horrible U.S. government, horrible this, horrible that, because they had slaves. Well, yeah, but we got rid of it. Who else didn't get rid of it? It's still widely practiced in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. It's still practiced in Asia.
And the Middle East.
Middle East, it's practiced. I mean, I've seen the slave markets. You can go buy people. And right now in Libya, after we liberated them, after Hillary Clinton, I saw he died. There were no slave markets, or they were pushed well underground during Gaddafi. Now the slave markets they're out there right now, just in full bloom. You can go out and buy a woman, and do whatever you want to do with her. They actually have rent-a-brides, where you can actually get a temporary marriage. I want to marry this woman for 2 hours. I think they call that prostitution, but that's not that you can actually marry her for 2 hours and then a divorce automatically takes place after 2 hours. That's going on there. And when you get married, you just have somebody call you up on the phone that's a cleric or something, and he performs some, do you agree? Okay, it's done. 2 hours, it'll be absolved.
Well, in Mexico right now, what do you think are in the brothels? Those aren't working women. Those are slaves. Those Absolutely. Are slaves that are bought on the slave trade, that go from Southern America,
kidnapped,
Central. Yeah, when you learn about this type of stuff, you learn who the victims are. You learn what the victims go through. It's hard to even process that human beings can do that to each other. But it's not just women. They do the exact same thing to children. Brothels with children in Europe, that's popular.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, those child brothels are all over the world. You can go to India, you can go to China, you can go anywhere, and those child brothels are there. And the children are either sold by the parents into slavery for money, or they're kidnapped, just like we see going on in the United States right now.
Same thing with Epstein Island.
But again, as we have forsaken the laws and testimonies of God, we see all this human vice and evil coming back at us, and it is going to collapse our society. That's the center point of what I always get back to. And if you're not preparing for it, you're laughing at Noah. Well, I want to say that, Doug. If you're not preparing, you are laughing at Noah right now. Yep. What a fool. If you're not preparing, you're laughing at Joseph. What is he doing? How many silos of wheat does he need? That you're mocking him. If you're not preparing, that's what you're doing. You don't think you're doing it, but that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, mocking prophets of God.
Yes, or mocking.
When has that ever been historically safe to do?
Yeah.
Well, look, I haven't slept yet. All right. I've been up since last night at 4 a.m. I'm sitting here reading my Bible, and I come across Acts 13. And this is what I was reading last night. You are a child of the devil and an enemy of everything that is right. You are full of all kinds of deceit and trickery. You will never stop perverting the right ways of the Lord. Now the hand of the Lord is against you. You are going to be blind for a time, not able to see the light of the sun. Immediately mist and darkness came over him, and he groped about, seeking someone to lead him by the hand. When the proconsul saw what happened, he he believed, for he was amazed at the teachings about the Lord. So even with this, it just remind me, because I'm watching all this. I'm watching the madness that is our country that's breaking down, man. There's some senator that's on a beach upside down twerking for votes. Kids are being sold as a commodity in our own country. Right is wrong and wrong is right. Good is evil and evil is good. Men can be women, women can be men. Don't have your juicy 100% Angus beef burger. Have a cricket burger. Do you remember when Obama said, "Hey, you don't need air conditioning," whenever he went over to Africa? Yeah, guess what's not happening right now in certain parts of our country? Because the power is being cycled off without your permission.
And the elderly are going to die from it.
Yeah.
They're going to die. That's the thing. And it is, I can promise you, there are bureaucrats in Washington that are looking and saying, if we got rid of 100,000 old people, that's Social Security.
There's a risk assessment that's always being done about stuff like this.
Yeah.
All the time.
So we get rid of 100,000 elderly people that are on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that are just a drag on the workforce. We get rid of them, and the government saves billions. That goes on. That's what COVID was designed to do. That's what Como did when he put that infectious disease into that old folks home. He got how many? 12,000. How much money did that save the state of New York? Now, how much grief did it cause the people who had their loved ones die alone when they couldn't even see them?
Oh, and by the way, YouTube, we're not talking about because there's a V word that we can't say, but we're not talking about the medicine. We're talking about the causality of what happened with a bad government. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Hey, look, we're at 45 minutes. I want you to talk me home from an EMP, from a blackout, but your car is still rolling. Now, there's a lot of theories there. Well, can the EMP knock out a car? Let's just say that the car is in play. All right. You know this game, the government game. Let's say that the car is in play and you can still drive. You're 500 miles from home. Lights go out. What do you do? Do you stop to get gas if you have to? Are you still having the ability to use commerce? If you can't use these anymore, then how are you going to buy food? How are you going to buy fuel? Are you going to barter? How does Bob get home?
Okay, there's a magic window here. Well, first of all, there's been an EMP. It's problematic whether most cars won't work. Okay, highly developed and with a lot of circuitry in it. I've seen the tests that they've conducted. Most cars are not going to run. But let's just say, hypothetically, you have an EMP-proof vehicle. The first thing you have to deal with is the vertical parking lot, because I think a lot of cars won't be running, and the people are too stupid to pull off the highway. They'll just stop right in the middle of the highway and block the highway. So you're going to have to deal with that. If you're coming home on a highway, it's just ambush point after ambush point after ambush point. Now, this is where the magic window comes in. You're going to have a little bit of time because people are going to be initially confused. 500 miles, you better not plan on any trip stops anywhere unless it's for gas only. I mean, if I have to do my business in the back seat, I'll do it. I'm not going to stop. Hopefully I have somebody with me. If I just relieve myself driving, I really would. I mean, I'm not going to stop. Once you dismount from that vehicle, all bets are off, because there's going to be multiple ambush points after this magic window. And we don't know exactly when the magic window will be. Once people figure out this ain't coming back on, then bedlam breaks out. And I mean, absolutely zombie apocalypse bedlam, eating people bedlam. That's what's going to happen. It'll be every man for himself. Don't believe me. Just look what happens when the power goes off in any major city. If you can divert around a major city, I would absolutely do that. If you drive through the heart of Atlanta or Seattle or New York after this happens, well, you just realize there's your grave. Yeah. That's where you're going to be. If you have women with you, they're going to be taken.
Well, the reason why I picked 500 miles, the average gas tank stops right there.
Yeah. I would immediately stop and make an assessment. And this is why, first of all, keep your gas tank full. And second of all, have a couple $100 in cash. Well, probably any more, about $400 or $500, because I don't know how much, it'll buy. But if the gas pumps are running, I'm just going to say something. You can buy a little fuel pump on Amazon with a little garden hose and both ends. It runs on a 12-volt battery. But you don't use a regular pump because it has to be spark protected. But you can buy them for $100, and then you can stick into a gas tank and hook up your car battery and fill up your gas tank. They're available. Okay, maybe you might want to have one of those. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not recommending.
Some vehicles, their gas tanks actually have a anti-siphoning device on them.
Yeah, well, most of them do have anti-siphoning devices anymore. But I'm talking about even a gas station.
Mm-hmm.
Doing things that you can actually pump it out yourself. So, I mean, and we just see that people today, they're just going there and puncture your gas tank and take your gas. I mean, the morality of it, if cars are off to the side of the road and not running, and I had to get home, I'm going to let other people make that moral call for themselves. Okay.
What about the people with the electric cars?
Again, how far does an electric car go? I mean, once you run out of electricity, you have no options at that point. Gasoline is still fairly available around the country, and being able to get gas is still fairly easy. But even if the gas tank pump goes off, that gas station guy has a way to open that tank up, and hey guy, I just filled up my tank. I'll stick the hose in there, pump it out. Here's $500. It just. Money speaks. I mean, it does. And that gas station attendant's probably making, $10, $12 an hour, $15 an hour, $500 to him is going to be like his whole week. I just want to pump gas out. You can take out the cost of the gas, keep the rest yourself. I want to get home. So you have that ability if you carry that little 12-volt pump in your car. Again, I'm not recommending criminal activity, but you can do that. If worse came to worse. But again, you're gonna have to worry about ambush points, the magic window. This is why you don't stop. You want to get home as quick as possible, because as time goes on, more and more people are going to figure out that power is not coming on. Something's wrong. Rumors going to spread very quickly that something has gone wrong. Somebody at the top is going to say, call some family member, because he's going to want to give his family member the benefit of time. And he's going to say, listen, get out of town right now. Don't come back. Go up to grandma's place in the country. Whatever he's going to say, get out of town. You know how quickly that information is going to spread? Like wildfire. And, by the time it gets to the 10th to 15th people, you're going to have just the most unbelievable rumors swirling around. And at that point, people are so panicked, they're going to believe whatever. So there's that magic window to get home. 500 miles, I wouldn't stop at all. I drive it. Even if I had to drink energy drinks, that 5-hour energy drink, whatever. I don't smoke, but I know when I was in my younger years and I'd make long haul drives, I would get a cigar, smoke the cigar, and that nicotine will definitely, it'll definitely kickstart the sleep bug. And I don't smoke, but a cigar definitely would definitely keep me awake if I did smoke it.
Yeah. And I quit smoking cigarettes a couple of years ago. I told my wife this, and she doesn't like this idea, but survival. If something like that happened, I'm probably going to go back to smoking cigarettes, because I know for a fact from being in the field, being on operations, and being in combat, cigarettes will make me, one, stay awake, give me something to do to take my mind off of stress, because stress is going to be one of the biggest killers that's out there. And it's also a hunger suppressant. So I can go longer in between meals and let my body burn off calories and fats and, kind of in a strange way, actually help my situation. Now, I'm not saying, smoke 4 packs of Marlboro Reds a day, but there are tactical advantages there, right? One of the things that we used to do whenever we would fall asleep is sit there and freaking punch yourself. It sounds idiotic, but man, you hit yourself in the leg really, really good, hit yourself in the chest, just to get the blood flowing, just to get the adrenaline going, anything. Because the last thing
head out the window. Yeah, I stuck my head out the window many nights just to look like a dog with its head out the window.
And we talk about not stopping, but just if we want to stay awake, one of the things that we used to do is stop, get out, do push-ups really, really fast, run in place for a couple minutes just to get the blood flowing and waking back up. Because the last thing you want to do is be driving and next thing nod off and wake up and go, how the hell did I just get here? How many times have we done that? That's extremely dangerous.
Well, driving sleep deprived is equivalent to driving double drunk.
Yes,
they've proven that. So if your alcohol level is 0.2, whatever it is, it's like driving 0.4 when you're tired. If you have somebody with you, you can rotate. That's the best thing. Yeah. But if you're not, that is good. But you still have to be careful, because once you're out of that car and not moving, it's a whole lot easier to ambush. Yeah. So you want to get to a point you're going to absolutely not have ambush. Again, if you have night vision, you can drive your car at night, headlights off. Now, don't do this now. Get caught driving down the interstate with your headlights off. But you can drive with your headlights off with night vision. So I mean, I've done it, and you can do it effectively. So people won't see you coming; they'll hear something, but those headlights will give you away a long, long ways away. In fact, when I'm driving with night vision, boy, I can see headlights before I could see them with my regular eyes. That night vision will pick them up a long, long way away and know they're coming.
And you can have IR illuminators like KC lights, but you can have IR illuminators mounted to
it's actually made by Light Force. I have them on my truck. Flick them on, flick all the lights off. They're infrared headlights, and it lights it up like Christmas. And you drive 70 miles an hour comfortably with those infrared Light Force headlights on.
Now, you're not going to be able to do that with the stuff you get from Amazon, though.
No,
you're not going to be able to do that at all. It takes real military grade night vision to have that type of operational capability.
And even if you don't have a kill switch, you still want to have like a towel in your car so you can drape it over the dashboard, because all those lights, it'll distract from your ability. Just take a towel and drape it over your dashboard so all your dashboard lights don't affect your night vision. That's a cheap way to get around that. But with that said, it's driving at night, hiking home at night is going to be far safer if you have the ability of nods, because you're going to be able to see people and avoid people long before they can ever see you or deal with you. So,
well, let me ask you, what are you going to have in your car? Now, obviously, don't give away OPSEC, but what would you recommend the average person to have in their car? And I would say this, honestly, I base that off of trips. If I'm going to be 6, 7, 8 hours, might as well at that point be an entire day away from the house. I'm going to carry things with me to help with that extended recovery back to the house. What would you suggest?
Well, in my truck, I would have a Montague bike, even if I had to find a bike somewhere. Just think on a bike, how far I can travel a day versus a car. So first of all, if the car did break down, walking home is probably not an option at 700 miles. It's, very few people could do that tactically or bodily do it. They just wouldn't be able to do it. A bicycle, on the other hand, you can travel 50 to 60 miles a day on a bicycle fairly easily. If you're in fair shape, you could travel that far. I also would have absolutely ibuprofen in my bug home bag, because if you're not used to that kind of activity, your joints are going to swell and you're going to hurt. Ibuprofen is a perfect thing for that. I don't recommend taking it every day like candy. I know what they call it, Ranger candy. Don't take it like that. But in a situation like that, it's absolutely necessary. Depending on how far away, I would at least have a pistol in the car. If I had much further to go, I'm going to have some type of AR pistol in my car, something a little bit more firepower. Carry that with me. Make sure it's legal to do in your state. In Tennessee, God bless Tennessee, you can carry a weapon in Condition 1 in Tennessee. And so great place. So if you did that, make sure you have that in there. Again, if I'm 7 days away, that's going to be approximately hiking home, doing something like that, 3,000 calories a day. You're going to want to have 21,000 calories of food in your car. You're going to want to have some type of water purifier in your car. I would definitely maybe have a Camelback. If I had a bug home bag, put a Camelback in the bug home bag. But I would also just keep and rotate it. That you can get a 24 pack of water. Just throw in the car somewhere and then rotate it out, every 6 months, just rotate and buy a new one. They're dirt cheap to buy them. And because you're not going to hike far without water, and you don't know the conditions or the water that you're going to face, if there will be. So you have to have that. I would have printed road maps. I would absolutely, GPS is great. And if it's working, that's great. especially if you're going to go cross country and stay off the highways. If you have to go down 50 miles one way and cut across 50 miles, we all know if you're doing that, the hypotenuse is the shorter length to go. And if you can go cross country that way with a GPS, that's great if you can do it. Get off the roads, because that's going to be the traffic centers, and get home that way. Obviously, a way to start a fire, although I will caution about fire. I wouldn't use it at night. I'd cold camp as much as I could, because a fire is going to give you away forever. If you can just even eat your food cold. If I was carrying like peak refuel on the way in pouches, I'd try to warm it up as much as I could, but if I can thermally warm it up, I do that. But I'm going to cold camp. I'm not going to start a fire and, cook marshmallows around it on the way home. Just not going to do it. It's going to give away OPSEC in a huge way. I'm going to stay mobile. I would have communication. Absolutely. Hands down. I'd have the ability to communicate. I would go into it, depending how far I am away, using HF or UHF, EHF frequencies, time, dates, frequency, that my family would know what time I would be trying to call on what frequencies, so they can hear me. I could give them a situation report, where I'm at, how I'm doing. And they would know to listen for that. They don't need to respond as much, just to listen. They might do a 3-click response, click, click, click with the key mic, whatever they need to do. But again, we don't want to have long times, because I don't want to have people circling in, find out where I'm at. When you do communicate, move. Do not communicate, set up the tent for the night and decide to call home. I'm going to communicate before I have to set up, and at least want to get 5 miles away from where I'm at. So I'd communicate maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, make that a time I'm going to communicate, and then maybe hike for 2 more hours, get away from that point, and then bed down there. Because as soon as you kick that thing, you can be triangulated on. And that's the last thing I want, is while I'm asleep or resting, if I'm hiking home or driving home, whatever, to get ambushed. So be careful with that. Don't give away pertinent information. Names, obviously, you'd never give away names, never give away locations. I use text to speech. Right on your cell phone. Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. Okay, stand by. Let me turn it up.
The purpose of intelligence gathering is exploitation.
See, my wife, she would not have to give away her female voice, because regardless of what liberals say, when somebody talks on the radio, I can get a pretty good idea if they're male or female. A text-to-speech program like that, she could use that instead of using her voice, so that you wouldn't even give that bit of intelligence away. Keep it short, and then get home as soon as you can. Most of us can do 500 miles in a car in a day. You're going to have to plan for different contingencies, but those are just some of the things I would have with me. Food, water. I would have a knife with me. I would have communication with me. I definitely have the ability to protect myself.
Now, when you say knife, not this.
No,
a fixed blade knife, and not just
a
very good foldable.
Yeah, a knife like that. That's a good knife to have. Or a folder. You can get good folders.
But you gotta understand that knives are meant for cutting. All right, knives are not meant for prying. And
I carry that knife with me in my truck, Columbia River, and it's very nice. It's a nice knife. I mean, it's lightweight, and it's open. You can flip it open fairly easily, and that would more than take care of most business.
Mm-hmm.
So very good thing to have around.
And I like multi-tools. I like these little small multi-tools because I can put them anywhere. But the thing that I do is I have dedicated tools. I have a dedicated knife for stabbing, period. That knife is not meant to skin game. It can if it needs to be. It's not meant for cutting cord or cordage. It can if it needs to be. That knife is meant to penetrate someone's body and get them off of me, period. I do have other things for that, though. Yep, handcuffs.
You can actually, if I don't want to shoot somebody and I get them, put your hands around the tree, buddy. I'm going to lock you up, and you can figure how to get out of it, but you're not following me.
Mm-hmm.
You're not following me. So those are just a few of the things I would have with me.
I would also keep a basic amount of tools.
Yeah.
Pliers.
Yeah.
Yep. Pliers,
A Leatherman type tool.
a Leatherman, something like this. But wire cutters, bolt cutters, you can buy in my breaching kit that I carried in law enforcement, I had a breakdown foldable bolt cutter.
This is in a car.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not going to be carrying all that on a backpack. But
it's too easy to stow all that, because all a car is the extension of the backpack. Hey, right, man, have your backpack stowed in there, and it's your Walmart now. Shop around for what you need for the mission. If you need to go out and cut the lock off of the gate because you can't use the highway and you need to get off, well, then you need the bolt cutter. Other than that, you're going to have to fight your way through trees, and your car may not navigate through it.
Yeah. There's other things, I've heard of people carrying those little tin tabs that they nail down tar paper with, because they will land on the nail side up. That creative thought there. I guess what they're going to use them for is throw them out of their car and stop people with it. They're flattened tires. Those are all things that you can do. And again, you don't want to do this unless it's a zombie apocalypse has happened and you need to get home and people are trying to prevent you from getting home to steal what you have. Again, I cannot stress the importance so much of that magic window of the time you will have to figure it out. So if you're at grandma's house 500 miles away and you want to get home, let's just sit around for a couple of days and figure out what this is about. By the time you figure out a couple of days down the road, you have just dramatically increased the risk of you getting home safely. It's something you're going to have to act quickly, gain the intelligence, saying, listen, we need to leave. We're going to leave now.
But why? Explain why, because the immediacy of getting home, and I know where you're going at, because over a period of days, people are going to get crazier and wilder.
Yeah. And the zombies really, they wake up after about 72 hours. That'll be the limit. It might happen sooner. Obviously, if somebody has a nuclear explosion go off and the power grid goes down and you see that, you're going to put two and two together really, really quick and saying, oh my gosh, if one nuclear explosion went off, maybe more did, the power's off. That zombie apocalypse there is almost instantaneous.
Well, just look how bad the city's got with the looting during the protests and the rioting. If the power was still on, we hadn't been attacked as a nation. It was just a riot and people were destroying towns. Throw in the actual bad situation.
That's why I was saying, if you can avoid a large city, don't go through a large city. And beltways or even use side roads, go around. It's going to be so much better to get off that major route and just get home than it is to go through a city that's probably burning. And if you're driving into a city and you're seeing multiple smoke plumes go up, definitely stay away from it. It's telling you something bad's going on there.
Yeah, the FBI would call that a clue.
Yeah, it'd be just a little bit of a clue, but get home quickly. But again, those are some of the things that you will absolutely have to have to effectively.
Would you carry with you barter items?
Gold, if you have gold and silver, yeah, it's always a good thing to have with you. I'm not going to, that's OPSEC whether I would have it or not at me at all times. But if you can have a couple 10th ounce gold coins, man, they can go a long way. Even a little extra food, a little extra water, just things to barter with. Absolutely. Navigating home, it's the art of life. Sure, you can shoot your way through it, but I'd rather not have to do that. I'd rather work my way through it and negotiate my way through it rather than shoot my way through it.
Absolutely.
So with that said, barter items, and if you can stay in your car, which I do question in an EMP whether most cars will be working or not. If you can stay in your car and your car is running, yeah, I would make sure I had everything in there. I'd make sure your spare tire is up to date. Make sure your spare tire has air in it. A lot of people don't check their spare tire for years on end and there's no air. You can buy little compressors now that plug into your cigarette lighter that'll pump up the tire. I have one in my truck. It's in there. I have a medical bag in my truck and I've used it. We do bike. There's a big bike race around here. And our ham radio club follows the race in case people get injured, we're the official people who do that. And I've needed that medic bag more than once for more than just boo-boo and Band-Aid injuries. So I'd have a nice medic bag. And I'd have it all in different pouches too. I'm not going to throw everything in one big pouch. I have a separate medic bag. I have a separate gas mask bag. If you do have to drive through a city, the odds of you, ever coming across where you need, to protect against smallpox, that can happen. But most people that would need a gas mask is for dispersal agents. You know what dispersal agents do? They're not pleasant. And if you're driving a car where you're hacking down as dispersal agents, you're going to probably have to stop driving for a while because your eyes can't see. You can't coughing
Well, and that's a good point, because within the first 72 hours, law enforcement's probably still going to be at work. Law enforcement is probably going to try and defend critical infrastructure, grocery stores, the town halls, because whatever reason. So you're going to come across the actual off chance of law enforcement saying you need to go the other direction. This road's shut down. And if you try to go through, hey, I got to make it home to my wife and kids. And,
this is why printed maps are so important. Yeah. Having a printed map. Okay, so I'm on Highway 27. If I go back up 5 miles, I hit Highway 11 here, and it circles around, and I can pick up 27 on the other side of the city. I'm just hypothetical roads there, but I printed road maps would allow me to have that ability. And so, you can get those U.S. atlases. I guess you have more and more gas stations don't have them anymore because everybody has GPS, but you can still order them online and get wherever you would travel to. I would have, if I traveled a lot, maybe a couple states around me, when I used to travel to Steve Quayle's Branson, Missouri thing, I didn't have a Missouri map. I had the atlas, but I bought a Missouri map just for that. When I went to Virginia Beach or someplace like that, there's only 5 ways you can exfil out of Virginia Beach. Only 5 ways. If you need to get there, there's Hampton Roads, there's Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, there's Elizabeth Bridge, 2 others I forgot about. I knew every one of those exfil methods to get out of Virginia Beach. I studied it ahead of time. So I would know in my brain, I've got it memorized. Okay, this is how you get out of the city. And when you're in a city, you can only get like 2 or 3 million people, and there's only 5 ways to get out. And 2 of them have underwater tunnels. I mean, the last thing I think I want to be done is be in the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and all of a sudden the cars back up and I couldn't get through there. And my car's jammed underneath in a tunnel somewhere, and then I've got to hike out of the tunnel and get home. No, thank you. So there was other ways, that you could get home when you wouldn't have to go across Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel or go in Hampton Roads Tunnel. There's other ways to get across and do that. Even if it meant driving around a ways, I would probably not risk going through a long tunnel, because that's such a choke point.
Yeah. What radio stations would you be listening to if you had access to it?
Well, first of all, I'd want to have a shortwave radio in my car. That way I can listen to radio all around the country. The Grundig 750 is a really good, high-powered, about $550 shortwave radio. So I can listen to AM, FM on it. I can also listen to NOAA. I can also listen to, from 0 to 30 megahertz. That's the shortwave bands. So I could be listening to, Nashville or any of these other big cities that have programs going on. And the government would take those over. The government does still work pretty closely with ham radio operators, because they know in the worst case scenario, those ham radios, those big shortwave radio stations, I mean, you can listen to WWCR Nashville. You can listen to it in New Zealand. And so you would have that information that you could be listening to that and getting information off of that. I have that ability in my car. I carry a pretty good radio package in my car. And AM, FM that you're on your standard radio, you don't know how effective those would be. That'd be propaganda, a lot of it. But with shortwave, you're going to hear ham radio operators talking about, you're going to get local intel. Okay, local intel. And that's more important than maybe some government official telling you what they want you to hear to keep the public, calm.
So let's talk about gathering intel real quick. You're on the road, and within your line of sight, you see cars stopped, people outside, and you can't really tell what else is happening. What would you do?
Pull up to that very, very carefully, if I pull up to it at all.
Mm-hmm. How far back? How far back would you say is a safe?
Well, it all depends on where I was at. If it was in the middle of North Dakota, when you're driving across the interstate there, and it just goes forever. If I'm in a city, I mean, anywhere you pull off in a city, it's a danger point because everybody in that city is going to probably hungry. That's why I say avoid it. I would try to keep back away where if I had to exfil, I could maybe if there's woods by, I could get into the woods and hide so I could visually hide myself and not so people couldn't see me or if they had to track me. Obviously, if I can see across the plains of Dakota, I can see you 10 miles away running away. Whereas if you're in Tennessee up in the mountains here, you can just jump your car and run off into the woods and it's going to be hard to track somebody. Yeah. So a lot of that depends on the conditions in which you're in. And which another thing, that's what I always tell people. I carry hiking boots in my truck. I have wool socks in my truck, not cotton. Cotton socks will burn your feet hiking in them. Wool socks do not burn your feet. So I also have moleskins in my first aid kit. Now, anybody know what a moleskin is? It's a little piece of fabric like that. You put it on something, a potential wear point on your foot where you might get a blister. And what that does, it takes the abrasion instead of your skin taking the abrasion. So you save yourself a blister. Hiking with blistered feet is not fun. Believe me.
And moleskin doesn't work once you got the blisters either.
No, it doesn't work once you put it. It's a prophylactic type event. Steve Quayle call me. I'll call him back here in just a second.
One of the things that I want.
Let me just say this is why ibuprofen again is so important to put in your bag because you're going to have aches and pains if you have to exfil out of your car and start hiking home. Twisted ankle, knee problems, any of that. Just putting a pack on if you haven't had one in a while, your back's going to hurt, and that ibuprofen can mitigate that pain substantially. And if pain will keep you having distance. You're going to have to rest more, relax more, stop more if you're in pain. If you can mitigate that pain, you can be able to go further, longer, and farther all the time. So that's why I tell people carry that. And I don't want to take narcotics because then they're going to screw my brain up. More is better. Yeah. Don't take your, 20 milligram hydrocodones. Don't do that because your brain's going to be all screwed up at that point and you're not going to be thinking clearly.
Yeah.
You might not even want to get home at that point. Hey, this is a good place.
One of the things that I would tell people to do is to set up for long range reconnaissance. Like this rifle behind me right here. I have a high powered optic on there. So do I need that for shooting people or shooting animals for hunting? It can be used for that. But 9 times out of 10, that optic is going to be used for reconnaissance.
Well, binoculars. Yeah, I definitely have binoculars. I have a pretty good pair of Steiner binoculars in my car. You can get a really good pair of binoculars. I mean, anything's going to be good, but a good pair of Steiner, about $300. And they're miniature. They're small, so it's not a lot of weight.
Vortex makes a really good binocular as well. That's one of the things that I like.
Steve Quayle's trying to call me. It's the third time he's called me, so I'm gonna have to just text him here real quick.
But if you can find a binocular that also has a rangefinder or have a rangefinder on the side, that's also actually a very helpful tool, knowing how far things are away from you.
Yes.
We could probably break this down a little bit more, but we'll wrap it up right now. Bob, this has been pretty good. I think we need to, I think people are wanting to hear more of the get home story from guys like me and you, because there's too many scenarios, because this entire talk changes in the winter. Yeah,
absolutely. In the winter it does. But the thing is psychologically preparing yourself, because you're going to see violence. Yeah. And if you're not prepared to deal with violence and reactive, excuse me. And I'm not talking about let's negotiate. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do that. If people are blocking the highway, sorry, I ain't stopping. I'm just not going to stop. Somebody trying to wave you down on the highway. That's an ambush waiting to happen right there. They got people off somewhere tucked in. As soon as you stop, boy, your car's rushed. I'm not stopping. You'll get out of the road. I'm not stopping. There's all kinds of things like that are going to happen, especially if you miss the golden window to get home.
What if it's a young lady on the side of the road or an elderly person trying to wave you down?
Yeah, well endowed with her shirt on top. Yeah. Guys, I'm not going to get graphic here, but think with this, okay? Think with this. Don't stop. No, and I know the chivalry in us wants to stop and help. If she were on the middle of Dakota somewhere where you could see forever, it's flat ground, there's nowhere to hide. Yeah, maybe. but I'd still frisk her down to make sure I wouldn't let her carry her purse on there. And I mean, just, whatever. But if that would be just a huge ambush point. No, sorry. It's cold hearted, but it's that just any woman worth is not going to want to do that because she knows where that leads.
And there were 2 serial killers back in the 90s or 80s. Yeah.
Florida.
Hey, there was a couple that traveled across Texas that killed several people. It was
she was a female hitchhiker, and she would lure men in for the promise of sex and then kill them.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Florida. I remember that.
Yeah, these people are going to be out there. Your Ted Bundys, your John Wayne Gacy's. These people are going to be there. Probably more availability of those people being there after the power goes out than before.
Yeah, we've talked about that because I mean, people that have all of a sudden realized I can get away with a whole lot more now because the cops are busy. This is happening. I'm going to go on my, I'm going to have my holiday here right now, and you're going to be their holiday. You don't want that. So get ready, ladies and gentlemen. I predict society is going to really break down badly, and you're going to see desperation. I just saw someone the other day, the lady going out of the supermarket with her grocery cart. Somebody robbed her. I think they killed her. Just coming out with groceries. And we're going to see more and more of that as food becomes too expensive to buy. People are going to be stealing food. We went into a whole series of that, of just, when to shop, when to go grocery shopping. I would probably take 2 or 3 people with me. If I had a caravan, I'd go with me. I'd go in the number of safety in numbers. I would have somebody following me if they could follow me to make sure I didn't pick up a tail. I'd learn how to do, we can talk about this one. They're doing a surveillance detection route, an SDR, how to do that correctly so that if you're being followed. If it got that bad and I had to go grocery shopping and come home, I would absolutely run SDR going home. I would not drive to my house straight. I would not do it. I'd see if I picked up a tail somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And, this is once again, how you work in teams is building the community first and having people to rely upon for events like that. Well, I'll let you go. This has been fun. We need to get back into this. 'Cause like I said, people want to learn more about this type of stuff to get home, survival situations. And eventually we'll talk about fortifications, because one of the things that people don't talk about is when they fortify their home is preparing for the siege.
Yeah. If anybody's interested in that night vision deal, they can call us at 800-627-3809. Again, 800-627-3809.
All right, Bob. Well, hey, you've been listening to American Vindicta. I'm Doug Thornton. This is Robert Griswold of Ready Made Resources. Thank you very much for watching this, and we'll see you next time. Stay frosty. The enemy's out there.